So on the Washington Examiner's site, and in their article about the Gaetz thing, has material that were provided by Matt Gaetz in his defense, with the idea that none of this stuff is true. You're supposed to assume that none of the stuff he is being quote unquote extorted for, which I would argue is actually blackmail, soft edge blackmail, and an offer of favors, quite frankly, more than blackmail. The worst description would be blackmail. The best description is a Republican is just offering an opportunity. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I can make a real problem you have that I have no stake in. Like, this guy doesn't have a problem. Understand, there's no good guy in this. The David McGee and all the people at this law firm, they're not good people. They're willing to help get rid of what they believe are legit charges against Matt Gaetz. Help them go away somehow internally. And I guess it's only because the criminal part of it is happening in Florida that they maybe feel like they have some kind of claw in this that they could help. Mm-hmm. But also in the PR front that he's going to have this. You're going to fly back with this with Levinson as he's brought back from Iran. You're a national hero. You're Charles Lindbergh, right? So the FBI. This is part of the letter that they sent him a letter called Project Homecoming, which, by the way, they typed up, provided to him, and gave him personally, which is not something you do if, I suppose, you think it should. If it hits the light of day, it hurts you. You obviously think if it hits, you're giving it to the person who, if it sees the light of day, hurts them, right? So the FBI became aware of compromising pictures depicting, quote, Congressman Gaetz and an election official involved in a sexual orgy with underage prostitutes, that's in quotes, in Maitland, Florida, during an unrelated investigation into political corruption and public integrity into another criminal case. So they got somebody's phone. They got Joel Greenberg's phone, basically. Subsequent information has resulted in Congressman Gaetz becoming a target of widening investigation into serious underage sex trafficking, political corruption, public integrity, and other criminal allegations against Congressman Gaetz and others. A grand jury has been impaneled in the Middle District of Florida to determine whether criminal charges shall be brought against Congressman Gaetz and others. It has been confirmed that at least one underage female has testified, not formerly underage, now of age, currently underage, according to this document. Female has testified to the grand jury that Congressman Gaetz has paid her to engage in sexual activities. It has also been confirmed that other individuals whom are facing serious criminal allegations against themselves have testified at the grand jury, namely Joel Greenberg, possibly others, and have agreed to testify against Congressman Gaetz at any future criminal proceedings. Our strategy, okay, here comes the extortion, right? Remember, Matt Gaetz has been on record saying this is extortion. They are attempting to extort money out of his family and bleed them dry. Our strategy for Congressman Gaetz to mitigate his legal and political troubles would be for him or someone else to arrange for the funds required to obtain the immediate release of Robert Levinson from captivity in Iran. Robert Levinson has been a political prisoner for the past 14 years. In exchange for the funds being arranged, and by the way, arranged, not necessarily that they would come from his dad. According to this document, they don't have to be the source. Matt just needs to go find the cash, get it from an appropriations committee. Go into one of his committees, possibly, and say, we need money, I've got proof of life photos, let's get this guy home. Which is arguably the primary way you would want him to do it if you're these lawyers, right? You want him to go in and get the money, more than you need, which is what you would get if you could convince them that you need $25 million in an appropriation committee to bring this guy home. You could commit 35 to 50 or 25 minimum with a 50 cap on making sure this happens and yada yada, right? So in exchange for the funds being arranged, and upon the release of Mr. Levinson, Congressman Gaetz shall be given credit For facilitating the release of Mr. Levinson, Congressman Gaetz shall also be on the plane that returns Mr. Levinson to freedom and shall be the person to, quote, reunite, and that's in quotes, Mr. Levinson with his family and bring Mr. Levinson back to the United States. They are basically presenting to him because they know he is screwed. They know this is a mess.
This is like a movie.
It totally is. It is old-fashioned, plain-level graft. That they have said to this dude, like, look, we know you're in a ton of trouble. If you can help us find the money to get this guy back, then we'll get you on the plane. You'll get all the credit, and you'll have this huge PR win, and it'll be really hard to go after you politically because you're a national hero. That's what they're offering. That's not extortion. They're going to a dude they know to be in trouble. Somebody in the chat called him a trophy hostage. This is exactly what it is. And so his dad thought it was a good enough plan that he was getting ready to go forward with it. But Matt knows, because he's probably on one of these committees that has heard some of the stuff, that the dude's actually dead. And it won't work out. And there won't be a return to the guy. And you can pay these guys $25 million, but there's no Robert Levinson to bring back.
Right.
So Matt Gaetz decides to make lemonade and present this, as if it's an extortion scheme. Instead of these guys, and basically pony up these other corrupt Florida guys in exchange for himself. Use it as cover. I mean, from a strategic standpoint, if he knows, genuinely, if he knows that this guy isn't coming home, then this whole homecoming plan would never work anyways.
Right.
So he knows he's screwed. So what's your fallback then in that circumstance? If you pay $25 million, you're never going to be the guy that brought this guy home. So what do? You tell everybody these guys tried to, extort money out of you, and by calling it an extortion scheme, you give the illusion that the investigation into you is false, that it was planted by these people, that they put this evidence there, that it's all fake. Instead of, we're not blackmailing you, we're offering you a huge PR win to lay ground cover.
Yeah, it's a way out.
And these guys aren't good guys in this. Everyone involved in this whole story is disgusting. Because the David McGee's of the world and the lawyers at this firm are basically saying, yeah, we know there's some pictures of your son with underage prostitutes. That's their quote. But we can make it vanish by just overwhelming good PR if you'll help us, make good on our promise to the Levinson family. So we don't care about these underage girls. We don't care what he's doing. We don't care that he's giving them drugs. We don't care that he and his buddy were flying him out of the country allegedly with fake IDs. We don't care about any of that. As a matter of fact, we'd love to help you make it go away, because we're making money from the Levinson family and the reward money that's going to come from that. So he posts this. I don't know why he provided this, thinking this would help.
Do you think those are his fingernails?
In the picture?
Yeah.
No, they don't look manicured. They just look cut.
Okay.
It's somebody from there. Somebody was allowed to take a picture of it, so they put it on the table, and you can see, Department of Justice. There's another. This is from the U.S. Attorney General Counsel R.E. Gaetz that was sent. It says, Counsel, I can confirm that your client is working with my office as well as the FBI at the government's request in order to determine if a federal crime has been committed. This has been discussed with and approved by the FBI as well as the leadership of my office and components of Maine Justice. The government thanks you for working cooperatively with the FBI. This is the whole, he sent it to Jeffrey Newman and CC'd it to Robert Davies. And the idea is that I guess he's they got a friendly in the Northern District of Florida to say, yeah, his dad wore a wire. The problem is, when he wore the wire, they didn't find a crime. The reason he said, oh, the whole thing fell apart because the New York Times dropped this story and the entire extortion scheme went away, and I would love to see they must release the tapes of the extortion thing. The reason is the investigation isn't going forward. And the reason the investigation isn't going forward is because these dudes offered favors, maybe, and that's why they were saying public corruption, not extortion, not blackmail. The conversation... Matt Gaetz, when he was on Tucker, said they questioned this girl I brought to dinner with you and a woman who turned out not to be Tucker Carlson's wife after all, that for this pay-to-play scheme, right? Remember he brought up this pay-to-play scheme. Mm-hmm. That's this. That's these guys. During the Trump years saying, we'll help you get rid of this if you'll pay for this thing. If you can arrange money for this thing, we'll make your legal troubles go away. This is just run-of-the-mill internal conspiracy to commit fraud within the government. I'll make your criminal proceeding go away if you do my client a favor. This is not an extortion scheme. This is not blackmail. This is effectively a form of like bribery and just simple graft. We got to take a break. It's time for for the news, ironically enough. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, mega worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk.